All right, let's get some more on TikTok here. Let's bring in Fast Money friend Gene Munster. He is managing partner at Deepwater Asset Management. Gene, great to see you.
Hello.
So, I know you were listening to the discussion very intently that we were having here on the desk. Meta has upside, but not necessarily any down. I mean, do you think that there could be any sort of retaliation on the part of China if a ban on TikTok goes through?
Absolutely. I'll add my kudos to Rebecca for pointing that out, too. I do believe that this is ultimately part of the chess match that's going on with the Trump administration, with where his relationships are growing, potentially with Zuckerberg, and what that means for TikTok. And to answer your question is that if this, in fact, does happen, if the U.S. does go and ban this, I think there's two paths. One is that China just basically folds, and it's a negotiating piece by saying they don't want to sell. I say China. China basically controls TikTok. It's a negotiating point. They say they don't want to sell. That negotiating piece is basically to scare lawmakers that their constituents would be disappointed if the app got banned. But at some point, if it's clear that they are going to get banned, they could fold and take the $100 billion and walk, the TikTok shareholders. But if not, it's going to come down to, if this does in fact get banned and they don't take the money, there's going to be some form of retaliation. The two obvious targets are Tesla and Apple.
In what way do you think the Chinese could exert, pressure on, I mean, Tesla, they could do whatever to their factories. In terms of Apple, what would be the way you would be concerned about retaliation?
So China is the master at red tape. And I spent 7 years, spent a lot of time in China, covering a lot of the China internet companies, worked with a lot of Chinese people, and I was taught just in terms of what they want to do things is below the fold. And so the master of red tape would be just making it difficult. How many hours a week? They could change some laws about number of hours a week that potentially someone could work. They could change how much power a given Foxconn factory can use in a given week. They can work. They did this to Tesla. They can impact the shipping, the trucking companies that would take the Teslas to port to be exported to Europe. They could do something like that with Apple. So I don't think it would be something where it'd be a big headline. The last piece that they could do is they could have a big influence in terms of how Chinese people think about Apple products or Tesla products. They obviously control like what Weibo and that language is, and they can influence that conversation. And so there's a lot of levers below the fold that can be used. Unfortunately for investors, it's not going to be an obvious headline. It's just going to be something where it just the gears of progress just slow.
So, Gene, is Apple mature enough and diverse enough now that, maybe 5 years ago this would have been huge for the stock, but in today's Apple world, it's not going to necessarily move. We're sitting here, it's at an all-time high, despite the fact that we're having this conversation.
So this is my biggest concern. I own Apple. Our firm owns Apple. I think that the stock is a big opportunity ahead of it relative to AI, but this is the biggest concern related to China. And to answer your question is that if we look at the total revenue from Apple, we estimate about 45% of that is somehow related to manufacturing in China. Now, as you said, that's been coming down. But it's still a relatively big piece. And what I described about that red tape, that slows things down. It doesn't take it to zero. It would be a slowing factor, and you'll know it. And lead times going up for products that are impacting the quarter. So I think investors are going to have some room to watch how these dials are progressing before any quarters reported.